gotta move. You can't sit there. That's my spot. So I'm back. Took me a little while to get back to this. I was talking last week about all the great things about LA that I loved and all the experiences I had. And I had really good experiences in LA in part because I was a girl from the Midwest, I think, and I was able to be successful, smart, do a lot in my work, but still maintain that innocence. And I think people like that. Some people like that. Most people hated it in LA because some people see that and they want to crush it, you know. But there were a few stories I thought of that I hadn't told yet about Christian Slater and Michael Douglas. And hopefully you're old enough to know who those people are. Hang on. I have pets, and they're constantly knocking at the door to come in or go out. So Christian Slater and Michael Douglas, there's two stories I want to tell still. One of the things that happened to me is I worked on a film in Texas before I came. I worked on a film in pesky bird. I worked on a film in Texas before I came to LA. It was The Legend of Billie Jean, and it had Christian Slater and Helen Slater, which were not related to each other. And I was a kid about their age. I mean, they were a little younger. And I was driving them around, and Keith Gordon was there too. And he became eventually a big director, and I actually dated him for a while they were working on the film. But let's see if I have a picture of that I can put up. We'd go out and do some fun stuff together, and they weren't that famous yet. Heathers hadn't come out yet with Christian Slater. And Helen later went on to do Supergirl. And I actually met Helen later when I was in LA because I took acting classes with a guy named Gary Austin, who was an improv teacher who founded the Groundlings. And we all went out for dinner a couple times, which is what the allure of LA is that these famous people are all in your milieu, you know, that you can go to these famous restaurants and there you see somebody famous, and it's like an everyday thing in LA. When me and my daughter were living in the luxury apartment we lived in, we'd see YouTubers all the time in our neighborhood, at least when we first moved in before LA went to hell. But Christian Slater worked on this film with me, and I was just a low-level PA. I was the person who brought the coffee and donuts, you know, but I did make friends with him and some other people. So when we got back to LA, like years later, I came to LA to work in the movie business, and I made friends with a girl, and we went to a fancy restaurant, Spago, just for the hell of it, to see if we could see any stars. And Christian Slater was sitting at a table, and I was like, Jenny, that guy over there, I worked on a movie with him. And she's like, Christian Slater? No way. So I'm talking to her about this, and Christian looks up, and he goes, Diane, come on over. How have you been? And my friend Jenny was like totally blown away. It was really cool because, you know, you don't go up to movie stars and talk to them, but Christian was talking to me. And the other thing that I did that was really fun with Jenny is I worked for Michael Douglas for a couple years, and I have another story about Michael Douglas when I first met him. But after that job ended, I had worked on a film. I'm trying to remember which film it was. And we went to the premiere, and these premieres were so fun. There was like a red carpet, and all the movie stars would come, and it would be in Grauman's Chinese or something. And I'd get invited because I was a low-level PA or producer's assistant, but I'd still get an invite. And my boss would give me invites to movie premieres all the time because he didn't have time to go when I was working at Disney. And I would go to there's, you know, all the cast of Star Wars or, you know, just big events. It was really fun. So we were at this premiere of this movie I had worked on, and Michael Douglas was standing in the corner talking to like Jack Rapke from CAA, you know, some of the top people in the movie business. And she said, and I said, you know, I'm wondering if I should go say hi to him after he's done with those guys. And she said, you shouldn't talk to him. He's really big, you know. And he looks up and he goes, Diane, how the hell are you? and he comes over, he just drops the agents and the big producers he was talking to, and comes over and talks to little me and my friend Jenny, and asks how we are, and it was just so cool. It was really cool. I have to say, Michael Douglas was probably the best human being that I ever met. That was, I probably met a lot, but I worked for him, and he was the son of a famous actor, Kirk Douglas, and a lot of these kids who are children of big stars kind of grow up with entitlement and stuff, but he was just great. And I'll tell you when I first met him, and then I'm going to move on to how Hollywood went to hell. I keep worrying if I shouldn't say the word hell, but that's a description of a place. But when I first met Michael Douglas, I had gotten hired by his company because my boss, who got fired from Disney, got hired by his company to develop movies over at Columbia at that time. And I was a low-level person greeting, like almost a receptionist. My boss promised me he would give me credit and a development job and producer credit, but I did all the work, but I never did get the credit, So that's the way Hollywood is. I mean, in those days, you had to really stand up for yourself as a woman, or, hey, my parrot's attacking my cat. Hey. Okay. So I'm sitting at this desk, and the door opens, and of course, since he was Michael Douglas, a lot of movie stars would come in and out of his office. I met a lot of famous people. So I never knew who was going to come in the door, but it was Michael Douglas. It's like the boss of the boss. And it was actually the boss's boss's boss. So I looked up, and here's my boss. So besides being a famous person, which didn't really make me too nervous, the fact that he was the boss of the entire place where I was working did make me a little nervous. But I didn't have time to be nervous, because the first thing he says to me is, I don't know if this is something I can even say on YouTube. He says, Diane. And I had never met him. And he had no way of knowing who I was unless his assistant sent pictures on in advance or something. But he goes, Diane, where's the shitter? I got to take a crap. Like he was trying to put me at ease by being so down to earth, which was really cool. But he would give us like gold jewelry for a Christmas present for all the employees. He was a great guy. I mean, money doesn't make you a great guy, but he didn't even have to give us anything. He was very thoughtful. So that brings me to what makes LA fun and also hell. People liked me because I was down to earth, but also I was pretty and skinny. And there's like values in LA. If you're pretty, if you're skinny, women hate you, men love you. And if you're innocent, a lot of people like to just destroy you or take advantage of you. And money makes everybody see. I think it's in part because living in LA is so expensive that everyone's struggling. But when I married the millionaire, I had a lot of friends that really just were hangers on to get free meals, or to get, when he was dying, they wanted to get things from his estate. Or so anyway, as you know, I did a whole series on this. Well, it's in progress. And I also did some episodes on this. I married a guy who was abusive and a drunk. And he also was attracted to me because I had a lot of money, and he wanted to have a free ride, right? So he was the godfather of my kids. I thought I could trust him, but that's such a long story. But he was attracted by the money, and he was actually very skilled he had a friend who was a lawyer who also was good at getting money out of people. And if you marry someone with that, in LA, divorces are very crooked. And I basically had to pay him off to leave me alone, even though it was I was entitled to everything that I inherited, and he wasn't supposed to be able to get his hands on that. So, the values of people in LA, a lot of them are narcissistic. They're thinking of themselves, and they don't have empathy. Like my ex-husband had no empathy, and they're thinking of how to get ahead, money, malignant narcissists. And this is the thing that I was liked for, because I was down to earth. So many people commented about that. But I knew my stuff. I knew how to produce movies. I knew how to develop scripts, right? But it also was the reason I decided to leave, is when I started losing that. And it's kind of the essence of the whole reason why I left, is because of the people. It's a beautiful place. I love the scenery, the mountains, the ocean. It's so beautiful, but the people, people are more important than anything. Community is more important than anything. And during COVID, all my friends moved away, liberal and conservative. They all left the very liberal state of California, because the crime, that price of living, and the fact that nobody could work for a living because they shut it down. And the geniuses that run LA and California decided that they would let a lot of violent criminals out of prison, that they would have no bail, so that when people were arrested for stealing, they would just be let out again. They'd steal multiple times during the same day and get arrested and just steal some more. They wouldn't prosecute people who would, and even violent criminals they were letting out. They wouldn't prosecute people who would, someday people won't believe this. And the politicians who are responsible for this will probably wipe it off the internet and make it not in evidence anymore. But they made a rule that anyone who stole anything less than $950 would not be prosecuted. So people were going around stealing, all crash and grab. Like, they would smash and grab they would just target stores, hordes of people. But the worst thing was the homeless, because, and I'm not blaming the homeless, I'm blaming the government for their stupid policies of shutting down LA for 2 years. My friend was in another state run by different kind of politicians. And they lived like normal. They had a 2-week shutdown as promised. It was going to last only 2 weeks. They didn't have mask mandates, vaccine mandates. In LA, if we refused to get the experimental shots, we were not allowed to work. And for a while, they didn't do that. It just escalated to that point. So my daughter was doing acting jobs, and when we got to the point where they were starting to mandate it, she would get hired to do a job, and they had an exception. If you have a religious exemption, you can write a letter and get a religious exemption from having to get the vaccine, as long as you're willing to take a COVID test, which everybody working on the set were getting COVID tests anyway. So it's pointless to even have to prove you have a vaccine. And looking back on this, I know future generations are going to say, well, if there's a vaccine, what do we care who got vaccinated? Those people are protected, right? If it's a real vaccine, it really works. This is all so controversial right now, but someday this will be on record and people will not believe what the hell they did to LA. Anyway, she'd show up for a job and they'd just turn her away at the last minute. She got hired and then they'd mark her as a no-show. And it's like some low-level peon worker decided that they were politically correct and that my daughter was not, for not getting the vaccine, even if she has a religious exemption, and just turn her away and mark her as absent. And that happened a couple times, and that was it. It's like, you mess with my kids, I don't mind suffering and struggling and all that. I do mind that for 2 years I couldn't work. My kids couldn't work. We couldn't pay for our luxury apartment. We couldn't pay for all the storage that I was going to go through and sell, but nobody wanted to get involved in that. During COVID, no one wants to buy some used furniture because we were all so terrified that it had germs, So after 2 years of this, I had a lot of bills and no money left. And I was fine with that still. But when that happened to my daughter and I felt like people were being mean to my daughter, that snapped me. It's like I thought for 30 years I would never leave LA, ever. And when that happened, I was just like, what's the point? If she can't get a job doing acting work, why are we here? So my friend was always telling me about this other state, Oklahoma, and that's where I am now. Okay, so so I decided I was going to leave LA, but that wasn't the worst of it. I mean, okay, so I decided I was going to leave LA, and I told the kids what I was thinking, and they were all on board. They're like, yeah, let's get out of here. I'm done with this. I can't meet any other friends. I can't do anything. So we decided we're going to have an adventure and move to Oklahoma, and we all agreed. We decided we'd go out to lunch, celebrate our decision. We get in the car. Our car is in an underground locked parking structure. And we pick up some food, and we drive back. Just in that 15 minutes, we get back, and my Segway is stolen. Now, a Segway is one of those things like the mall cop drives. We had a lot of recreational toys left over from when we were wealthy. So somebody had tried to steal this once before out of our locked parking garage, and I had a bike rack on it. They had cut the bike rack, but then they couldn't lift it. It's a very heavy machine. And you also cannot drive it without the little round key card computerized chip that you have to insert. It's not going to work. But they had tried to steal it, and so I had gotten one of those really big, heavy, U-shaped, solid iron locks, and I locked it against the wall to this bolted-on iron bike rack that they had. It was bolted to the wall of the building. And I put a big note on it, said, please don't steal this because it's not going to work anyway because you need the key card and it's a computer chip and it'll never work. So I put that note on it. So this was before that day, right? So when we left, I was in the habit of always looking to see if my Segway was there because every time I had two of them actually. And every time I'd walk out, I'd just look to the left and see if they were there, if they were in the same position, and then go to my car. And so we went, picked up the food, we came back, and my Segway was gone. And we went up to it and looked, and the entire bike rack was ripped out of the wall, and the whole thing was just taken. And so I thought, this had to happen in the last 15 minutes. So let's go drive around the neighborhood. Let's drive around the block and look around and see if it's in the back of somebody's pickup truck or something. Because it would have been so hard for them to lug it out of here. So we got in the car and we drove around the block and with our eyes open looked at what was around the block. Which up in our high-rise luxury apartment, we would just drive in the parking garage, get out and go up the elevator and we'd never see the neighborhood. We never really look. And this is the first time we really looked. After I decided I was leaving LA, we come out of the parking garage. And of course, I knew there were homeless people tented out there, camped out there in these tents. But there were a lot of them. And there's this one guy who was always sitting in a chair and he was like crazy. And he would whip his head around every time I would drive by and stare at me, which was really creepy. But he just lived in this recliner chair out in public on the street. And he was actually walking around, and as I'm turning the corner, he turns and stares at us really belligerently, right? And then there's this whole row of like 20 tents just in that one block of homeless people, which I feel sorry for, So then I turn the corner and I see all this graffiti all over the buildings that I hadn't really noticed before. And we're in line to turn right. And there's a stop sign and there's a very busy street. So we're kind of stuck there a while. And there was a homeless guy with a shopping cart to the right of us. And I turned my head over to look. And he was squatting down. And I thought he was wearing like skin tight brown tights. But he was actually naked from the waist down. And he was squatting. And I could see literal poop coming out of his butt. And I'm like, my daughter's sitting next to me. I'm like, don't look. He's pooping, which of course makes her look. And so then she's like, Mom, let's go. And there's a car in front of me and we can go nowhere. And he's right next to our window. So then we turn the corner and there's this cute little mom and pop restaurant, which we used to walk to. And we were always afraid to walk to it after about a year of crime and violence and homeless people and crazy people. And I used to always joke about the crazy guy with a stick that was going around attacking cars, and the crazy woman who was exposing herself and running down the street who was bald. I hope my bird doesn't belligerently attack my cats. Stop it. Hey, no. Leave them alone. It's a parrot. So I used to make these jokes on Neighborhood. This is this app where you could see what the crimes are that are going around your neighborhood. And I'd be photographing them, and people would make the most hilarious comments. But after a while, it got really bad. And it was, instead of a man with a stick, it was man with a gun. It was gang of people with guns, so we didn't go out anymore. So I went past this restaurant that we used to love, and they're still open, but their walls are all graffitied and the parking lot is empty. And I'm thinking I would love to give them business one more time, but oh my God, my bird is totally crawling all over my cats and they're putting up with it. I'm afraid what he's going to do. So we turned the corner, and then I thought, I didn't see anybody with this Segway, but it's a dead end down there. Let's just go down there and look. So we went down to the dead end, and there's this guy laying on a mattress that's propped up on the curb, and he's staring off into space, and then he goes under the sheet, and he's doing something, and it looked like he was like shooting up, and then he was like passed out, and we're just like, I can't believe what's happened to our neighborhood. This is a luxury building. So that really opened my eyes. Bird, do not eat the cats. I got to show you this. What are you doing to those cats? You're not going to bother them, are you? Bird, be nice. They're intelligent creatures, so they're bored. Sorry, I had to do that to sync the sound. Okay, so I decided I was leaving. So I tried to get a U-Haul. I tried to get a U-Haul, and online I could not book a U-Haul. So I go to the local U-Haul place, and I talk to the lady, and she says, oh yeah, the problem we're having is they're all going out of state, and nobody's coming back. So the price was like $5,000 for a 26-foot truck. But I needed it. I thought I needed it. I didn't want to leave. Oh my God, I had 3 huge storage places full of valuable antiques and furniture and art and sculptures and collector's items and memories. And then we had everything we needed for our house in the apartment. And I thought I can't afford to replace, buy something for all the things for the kitchen, buy all the beds and everything. So it would be cheaper if I could get a U-Haul to at least get the basics we need and just leave everything else behind, which is what I ended up doing. So I was talking to her about it, and she says, well, I can try to get you U-Haul. I'll look around and see if there's any in the state. And if I get one, I'll call you. So then she called me like about a week or 2 later and said, hey, guess what? I got one. So you have to come down and pay for it right now. And having lived for 2 years paying rent on 3 storage places, a luxury apartment, having no way to work because of the vaccine mandates and because of the shutdown that they did, I was pretty broke. So I had to use like 3 different credit cards to pay for it, which at first U-Haul wouldn't allow, but she found a way to charge it. So I had paid for this U-Haul, and I was going to pick it up Friday. It was all paid for. I'm back home cleaning up, getting my stuff in order, and what I planned is I'm going to take 1 trip with a U-Haul with our basics that we need and my son, and he'll go camp out, and start unpacking in Oklahoma, and then I'll go back for my car. I'd fly back and get my car and drive. I have 3 cats and a bird. And I love my pets like they're family members, and I'm not going to leave them behind or sell them or give them away or something. And I couldn't fly with them, I didn't think. 3 pets, 3 cats. I'm not going to ship them because that's like a horror story. So I got this U-Haul lined up. We're cleaning up. We're packing. We're planning on Friday. And all of a sudden I get a call. If you don't come down here right now and get this U-Haul key from me and take this U-Haul off the lot, somebody's going to come and give it away to another customer. The manager has paid, I figure people were probably paying people off at this point to get U-Hauls because this was the last one in the state that she could find. So I had to run down there, pick it up, and drive this truck that I'd never driven before under pressure. It's like, okay, we don't have time to teach you how to drive the truck. Get rid of it now. So I'm driving through this crowded North Hollywood streets for the first time in a 26-foot truck. And I had to get gas because that gas tank was empty because I didn't have time to clean it out or fill it up or anything. And so I drove it to the gas station. I filled it up. I scratched the side of the U-Haul a little bit on the gas station. They had things by the gas pumps, and I didn't know the turning radius of this thing. So I'm super careful, and I get it down to this big parking lot across the street from our luxury apartment because you can't park it in the street. It's illegal. It'll get towed away, and then U-Haul will take it back, right? And I need it. So I parked it in the parking lot of the Metro, which is the train station. So I go upstairs and I tell my daughter, I got it. I caught it. It's parked out there. I don't know what to do. That's not really a legal place for me to park it, but I think it'll be okay overnight. You want to see it? So we go out on the balcony to look out, and she sees my truck parked out there in this parking lot that's empty now because of COVID, but used to be full all the time. And she says, there's somebody in the truck. There's somebody in the truck, Mom. So I look, and there's a guy sitting in the driver's seat, and I had locked it. So I'm like, we got to go down there and confront him. He's stealing the truck. I hope it's not the guy from the manager who wanted to get it for his, how did they find it? They don't have GPS on these things. I happen to know that for a fact because my daughter watches YouTubes of people stealing U-Hauls, and she told me that they don't have GPS. So we go downstairs, and I'm trying to confront this total random stranger in the car, and I'm like, get out. That's my truck. I'm calling the police. And I'm like screaming at him. I think I have a clip of that. I'll try to insert it here. But I was sort of terrified. This guy was not a homeless guy. He was like a criminal type guy. And he's like, I said, get out of my truck. Get out of my truck right now. And he's like, sure, I'll get out of your truck. And he wasn't moving at all, right? So I'm like, we're calling the cops, and I'm like barreling around this long fence trying to get to where he is, and I'm going to confront him. And it's stupid because he could have had a gun. I don't know. I had to get out of LA, and I felt like this was an obstacle. So he got out of my truck and started sauntering away finally because I was hostile enough. And I said, we've got them on the phone right now. And she called 911 for me, my daughter, and we had him on the line. And I was trying to tell the lady about this guy in the truck. So he believed us, I think, because he heard the conversation on the speakerphone. But those cops don't have time, really, to help you. So we were lucky he left. So the next morning, I was pleased to see my truck was still there because I thought either the manager would find it or the criminals would come back and take it. We loaded it ourselves. It was exhausting. And then me and my son drove cross country. And it was really fun riding with him. And we had a lot of fun. There was one point at which we really had to go to the bathroom. And we were in the desert, and there was a desert traffic jam. I don't know why would there be stopped traffic in the desert for as far as you could see, like 20 miles of stopped traffic. And we were stuck there, and Michael so had to pee. I'm like, just go in front of the truck and pull your pants down and just pee on the cement. No one will see you because the car in front of us was also a truck, and no one behind us would see him. And I'm like, just do it. No one will see you. And he went out there. He's like, I can't do that. So we had fun on a road trip. We made it here. We unloaded ourselves. It was exhausting. We actually found some people we could hire through U-Haul to unload. And then I flew back. Got my car, cleaned up the apartment. I wanted to get my deposit back because that was a lot of money that I was going to use to pay for my rent here. I had no clue until I talked to a neighbor that it's common practice in LA, in that neighborhood, for the landlords to just keep your deposit no matter what you do. They don't intend to ever give it back. That's just considered extra income to them. And it said in my contract that as long as there was normal wear and tear, that my apartment would be fine and I'd get my money back. And we cleaned everything. We vacuumed everything. We cleaned the walls. We made the place spotless. I got rid of little specks here and there. I filled little holes with toothpaste. Everything was just looking perfect, right? And the landlord comes up for the inspection, and she goes through and she points out at all the little things that were there when we moved in. There was a little hole in the screen that was there when we moved in. There were a few marks on, one of the doors that were there when we moved in. And she says, and she pulls the carpet up and looks underneath, and there's some stains. And I know that my cats have never peed on the carpet ever since we moved there, but somebody before us could have had a dog that peed or something, or they might have spilled things. She shows me these stains on the bottom side of the carpet. And I said, first of all, no one can see those. Second of all, how do you know they weren't there when we moved in? She's like, well, they'll have to come out of your deposit. Oh, this whole place needs painting. And I looked into it, and first of all, I knew it wasn't painted when we moved in, because when we moved in, there were smudges, which were tiny, and I thought, that's no big deal. Well, I found proof that it was never painted, because there were nails in the walls and holes and little things around the apartment that had not been painted from the previous tenant. So she wanted to do a whole repainting of the entire place and charge me for it, even though I had lived there 2 years. And the standard in the rental industry is 3 years, everything needs painting. Every time you get a new tenant, usually you repaint. And that's standard, normal wear and tear. But she wanted to charge me for all of the expenses, right? So I fought her. I wrote a long letter. I made sure I made everything clean. I documented it with pictures. I had my sister-in-law and my niece come over and go through the final inspection with her. I talked to her. I argued with her. And they ended up sending me about half because I was such a belligerent person. But that was later. I wasn't sure I was going to get anything at all. So now my credit cards are almost full from this U-Haul, and I have to make it cross-country, and I need to feed my daughter and myself. And when I get there, I'm going to need to pay my rent. So I have a lot of stress going on right then. So we get in the car, we load it up. We couldn't fit everything in. My sister-in-law was so great helping me load it up. Thank you, Dillis. And I decided to take 3 cat carriers just in case of emergencies, but I couldn't fit the cat carriers in the car. So I brought these other cat carriers that were like cloth cat carriers and one solid one. I had kitty litter set up in the car with food and water in the back. And the bird cage was perched on top of this tiny bird cage was sticking on top of the suitcase of clothes, and it was just, we were just crammed in this car, and we were like, well, it's only 3 days. It's a 3-day drive. So we thought. So we get in the car, and we could barely shut it. We say goodbye to Dillis and my nieces, and we start driving. And we did pretty good. I was shocked, actually, to find in the desert that gas was $6 a gallon because it was $2 at that time. Of course, now with politics and inflation, trigger warning for people who are Democrats, inflation. Anyway, yeah, I really feel like people do not understand cause and effect and should be more aware of what they're voting for. But anyway, I digress. So we did pretty good. We stopped overnight outside of California, and the next day we made it all the way to Santa Fe, and we stopped and we had a nice evening in this kind of creepy Motel 6. I loved Motel 6. I was like, wow, they're great. They have a 2-pet minimum in some of them, and we had 3 cats, and the bird didn't count. So we didn't say anything, and they didn't ask, which I was grateful for. And we'd carry the cat litter up, and we'd carry the food up, and we'd carry the bird cage up. And all this time we're going back and forth in this creepy part of town. I didn't know it was a creepy part of town when I booked this hotel. I can't explain. Well, one of the things that made it creepy is we drove up and there was a guy wearing a gun on his hip, standing in front of the motel, wearing all black with his face covered. That was a little creepy. He was their security guard. He didn't have a uniform. He just looked like a creepy 20-year-old in an Antifa outfit, Another thing that was creepy was the bullet hole in the door. Actually, now I'm thinking there's some creepy stuff. And also, this always bugs me when I see like child's underwear laying on the ground. Or there was also dirty diapers. So those things always make me feel creeped out. And then, of course, we got a room that was on the second floor and down all the hallways on this rickety staircase. And it was a lot of work carrying all this cat paraphernalia up there, right? So, but that's the second night. And one more night and we'll be home for good in Oklahoma, right? So we get up, we get in the car, load it up again. We start driving, and I start getting warning lights on my car. I have a Tesla. It's a great car. I've never had a problem with it. I've never had to repair anything. It's got very few moving parts. It's been wonderful. But I got this warning about coolant or something. So I pulled over, and I called Tesla, and the person the one drawback of Tesla is they have a lot of young 20-year-olds answering the phones for service, and they don't know anything. So this guy said he thought it would be fine to keep driving. I'm in Santa Fe. So New Mexico is enchanted, supposedly. I think I know why. I think it's full of demons. So anyway, they don't allow Tesla to have any service centers anywhere in the state because I guess they're dominated by politicians who are crooked and want to support their local auto industry or something, which is foolish because Tesla's American made and those local dealers are working for foreign auto companies, basically, that are made in other countries. It's kind of stupid, but what Tesla had done just a few months earlier is set up a service center on an Indian reservation to get around the local laws that were prohibiting them from having service centers. So I had to get my car repaired at the Indian reservation that was about 100 miles north, and I had to pay for a tow truck. And unfortunately, I had 3 cats and a parrot in my car, and I was checked out of the hotel. But this guy, I pulled over right near the hotel, and this guy said he thought it would be fine until I get to the next state or something. He thought it would be fine. It's just a warning light. Ignore it. It's not critical, right? So I noticed when I get back in my car after calling him that there was a big puddle on the ground. And I called back, and I got another guy, and I said, I'm really worried there's a big puddle on the ground, and I'm thinking that something leaked. And he said, well, is it green? And he said if it wasn't green or blue or something, and I couldn't tell. It was really cold out. It was so cold, and it was getting to be winter, and it looked like water. So I said I thought it wasn't. He said, well, why don't you just keep driving? It'll be fine. It's just not critical. So I drove some more, and I got on a freeway, and I got out into the desert, and then my car completely gave me a warning. The car is shutting down, pull over. So I'm on the freeway with 3 cats and a parrot, and he's squawking. Why are you squawking so much? You need some water? All right, you got some water. Please be quiet. So I didn't know what to do. I was just, first of all, I was mad at Tesla, but it's just a couple guys who didn't know anything. There's not many Model X's that are as old as mine because I got one of the first 400 made, so it's not really their fault. So I got all the cats out of the car. I had to remove all the baggage, pillows, kitty litter, because way on the bottom is where the cat carriers were. And meanwhile, they're crawling around the car, wondering what's going on. And I put them in the cat carriers, which they were kind of used to because I had wisely left them in our apartment and let them play with them. So I put the cats next to the side of the freeway with the cars whipping by. I'm sure they were terrified. I put the bird next to the freeway. I covered his cage. And then I put everything back in the car. And then I called, the Tesla people called a tow truck. They said it would take an hour to get there. So we did all that when the guy was getting close. And then I begged him, will you please stay with me while I call an Uber, which I assumed was everywhere. I thought there were Ubers everywhere. There's not that many Ubers in Oklahoma. But luckily we did get an Uber driver. And this is in the height of COVID still. So the tow truck driver was happy to wait for us to not stand there alone on the side of the road. Thank you. And our Uber driver crammed in he had a regular sedan, regular car, and we crammed in all these cat carriers and the bird cage and us, and he was really gracious about it. We drove for an hour to get to this small town north of Albuquerque. Actually, it was Albuquerque where I broke down. We had to go stay in Santa Fe, which was outside the Indian reservation. So we get a Motel 6. I managed to find one with a room. They had a 2-pet minimum, very clearly stated. They were very strict about it, and we had to have our room cleaned every day. And the Uber driver was so nice. He said, well, I'll help you carry the stuff upstairs. Of course, I got an upstairs room again. And just tell them about the 2, and then we'll sneak the other one in, and I'll wait here. So thank you. Thank you. We get in their room, right? And I sign in, and they managed to agree to let me not have housekeeping because I said I thought it would upset my cats, and I told them my plight. So we happened to be a few blocks from a Whole Foods, so we were able to go there to buy some groceries, and there was a little refrigerator in our room, but no cooking, right? So meanwhile, we also have this shot, Aimovig, for migraines. It has to be refrigerated at all times. We had it on ice the whole time, and they were gracious enough to put it in the refrigerator. So we're in the room, and they're going to fix my car, and they tow it off, and they call me, and they say that there's a part that I need. It's a specialty part, and it's going to take a couple days to get. And this is a couple days before Thanksgiving. So it turned into multiple days because the part didn't come on the day before Thanksgiving, and everyone went home early that day, and they couldn't put the part in when it came, and then we had to wait through Thanksgiving in this hotel room and keep telling the people up front, hey, could we have more towels, and is it okay if we skip the housekeeping today? And walking to Whole Foods and getting cheap food for our Thanksgiving, and calling Michael back in Oklahoma and telling him, I'm sorry, we're not going to make it for Thanksgiving. And then they finally were able to fix the car, bring it back, and we loaded all the stuff in. We were going to check out of the hotel, but we didn't because I was smart. Loaded all the stuff in, and the tire's flat, and I need a new tire. And we told them, oh, we're going to stay a little longer. We got the tire people. We arranged with a local tire place to get a new tire, and they had to order it because it's a specialty tire for my car because I have a special car. So that was another few days to order it, and then it was the weekend, and then they didn't have time to put it on until the next week. So we stayed in the hotel another week, and so we kept buying food. We kept paying for the hotel. Every day we're paying like another $100, another couple $100. And the tire's fixed. We get the stuff put in the car. We're almost ready to go. We're going to go this morning. I'm walking down the stairs, and all of a sudden my ankle buckles under me. And it is the worst sprain I have ever had. I go falling down the stairs. I'm laying on the stairs. It's freezing cold. It's been snowing. My ankle is killing me, like so excruciating. I'm like, it's the kind of pain where you're just pounding on the ground next to you, and just, hyperventilating, and it was right outside the office of the hotel. And I was like, help me, someone help me. I was just devastated that it was my driving foot. I was once again blocked from leaving this town and what was going to happen to us. And when I've sprained my ankles in the past, which I've done maybe 50 times, believe it or not, once you sprain your ankle, you sprain it a lot. I have gotten in the habit of always relaxing my muscle immediately when it starts going down. And I couldn't do it this time. And I heard a big snap. And I thought, oh my God, maybe I broke a bone or something. So I laid there, and some people who were walking by saw me and went running up. And I just needed help. I was afraid I was going to have to take an ambulance to the hospital and get COVID, but I just needed to stay warm and somebody to go tell my daughter where I went. And I hadn't luckily checked out from the hotel yet. So I laid there for I was just like, just give me a drink. Just help me pick up my groceries that I dropped. And I just laid there for about 10 minutes. And finally I was able to sort of hobble back to my room. And I just asked them, please let the staff know that I wasn't going to check out. That's what I needed the help with. So I'm laying in bed. Somebody got me ice. And I put it up, and I took a bunch of Advil or something to sort of make it anti-inflammatories. And I just laid there for a day, and I just focused on healing my ankle. Please relax my ankle, And for some reason, this is really weird, but the next day it was fine. And that was the worst sprain I'd ever had. So then I decided, okay, thank God, And I had been researching Santa Fe all this time because I was so bored. And I found out there was this miracle church in Santa Fe that this phenomenal miracle happened where these people were building the church. They ran out of money, and they never had the money to build a staircase to the upper floor. And they didn't have room to put it in either. And this guy showed up named Joseph or Jesus or something, Jesus or something, with a donkey. And he said, please help me. I need a little food. And in exchange, I'll build your staircase. And they said, and he was a master carpenter. And he locked himself in and said, don't come in. Don't check on me. And I got the story like third hand. But the staircase was built overnight. They went in and they peeked in, and he was gone, and there was this staircase that was built without any nails, and it was just the most beautiful wooden staircase with some kind of a wood that they couldn't identify. And I thought, I want to see this before I go. So I said to my daughter, let's stop at this church. It's a famous church on the way out of Santa Fe, and just look at the staircase and thank God that I'm finally getting out of here. So we decided we're going to do that in the morning. And that night we decided we're going to just go out to eat and celebrate that we're finally leaving. And we went to this haunted hotel. So we went to the haunted hotel and had a lovely dinner. And I went up to the manager and I said, I heard this is a haunted hotel, and can you tell me any stories? And he told me all these stories about this haunted hotel and gave us a whole tour. In fact, I might put clips in here of that too. My daughter got sick. She just suddenly felt overcome, like she had to faint, which I thought, well, maybe it's because we were in the hotel so long she didn't get any exercise. And maybe it was all the blood rushing to her stomach to digest her food or something. Or maybe it was one of the ghosts from the haunted hotel, like possessing her or haunting her. So we went back. This guy was really nice. The manager of the hotel actually gave us a ride home to the hotel. And we're like planning to leave in the morning, right? She gets real sick. And then I got sick. And then we realized we had like some kind of cold or something, and headache and fever and stuff. So I was like, maybe we should just wait another day, and then we'll go another day. And I got some COVID tests because I thought, what if it's COVID? So we took I thought, okay, so I was the first one who got sick, actually, but she got sicker. So I thought, well, I'll take a COVID test, and that'll be good for both of us because we'll know we both have the same thing. So I took the COVID test and it was negative. So I thought, okay, so we're just going to rest here another day or two and then we're going to go. And we got worse and we got worse and I got worse and I got worse. So I took the second COVID that comes in the box and it was positive. So then I realized we have COVID and we're in a hotel and the maids are cleaning up our trash and stuff. So I warned them. I was afraid they'd kick us out if I told them we had COVID and we didn't have anywhere to go. So I said, hey, I told the maids, hey, be real careful with that trash because we're really sick. And I would leave it sit for a day before I'd put it out and stuff. And they looked at me funny and I'm like, yeah, really sick. So I decided I might die in Santa Fe if I stay here much longer. And I thought, there's this, my friend told me about this antibody treatment. And I called around. I found out I could get the antibody treatment. And because I'm older and I have some conditions of high blood pressure and stuff, I thought, I don't want to die on my daughter and have her stuck in Santa Fe. She can't drive. And my son's stuck in Oklahoma and all the cats here. And, what would they do? Their hands are full and there's no one who would come and help them. Maybe my sister would, my sister-in-law. Dillis would probably have helped them, but nobody else that I know would have helped them, I'm sure. Not after they didn't help me with all my problems. So I went to get the antibody treatment, which is an IV, and I drove all the way to Albuquerque to get it. And we're in Santa Fe. It's up 7,000 feet, right? Oh, I failed to mention the reason I decided the real turning point for me was I went to the store and I got the COVID test and I also got the oxygen meter. And I took my oxygen and it was at 80. And that scared the crap out of me, but I didn't tell my daughter. And I realized 80 is the number that my doctor told me. One of her patients got down to 80 and he died from that before he could get to the hospital. I didn't feel like I was dying. But 80 was a real scary number to get when you're used to 99 every day. So I decided I have to get this antibody test. So I went down to Albuquerque. I felt like shit. I drove for an hour to get to Albuquerque. And they had all these rules, like you sit in your car and wait for the nurse to get you. And they come out in all their uniform and their PPE and face shield and everything. And they gave me the treatment. I was COVID positive for sure. And they gave me the treatment. It was an IV for 20 minutes, and then I got back in my car, and I felt like shit, and I started driving all the way back for an hour, and I get back to the hotel, and that night I was super sick, but I felt better because I knew I had had the treatment. But looking back on it, I think it was actually the treatment that made me sick. So I'm in the hotel thinking I might still die with 3 cats and a parrot, and we're running out of food for them, and my daughter's scared to leave at this point. And thank God I talked to a friend and she just said, you need to get in the car and start driving and just get out of there. Something's cursed about Santa Fe. And I really felt like God was testing me. I felt like, what is it God wants me to do? There's something I need to do to get out of here, and I haven't achieved it yet. It's a test. And that was even before I decided to go to that church and pray at the Miracle Church. I thought, God is just waiting for me to do something. But then when I sprained my ankle, I thought, no, it's not God. It's a evil force messing with me because it's not wanting me to go to the church and pray to God. So maybe it's testing me to see if it can make me break. So we felt really sick. Vomiting, really felt bad. And we packed, and I was low on oxygen, and I was struggling, and I packed the cats in the car, and we made all these trips. Me and Gaby, she's such a trooper, both of us loading the car with all the stuff, and it was such a commitment. It's like, okay, when I finish loading this, if I feel so sick that I can't drive, what are we going to do? We're going to unload it? So we put everything in the car. It barely fit. And we started driving. It was late by the time we started driving. It was maybe 11. It took us a long time to load that car and resting in between. And we started driving. We had to get out of the hotel by 11 to not be charged another day, which my card was completely full. And my daughter had her temporary license, and she said, let me drive a little. And we took turns, and we stopped at truck stops, and we were like, we got to stay away from everybody. We have COVID. But it just was miserable for the first hour, and then I started feeling better, and I realized something. I realized I was up at 7,000 feet in Santa Fe, and maybe my oxygen was depressed because I was at a high altitude. But we just kept driving and getting out of the state, going across Texas and driving past all the windmills and the oil rigs and into Oklahoma. And the whole way we're like, let's just go a little farther. Let's just go a little farther. And we made it. We made it out of there into God's country, thank God. And there is a song called God Country about Oklahoma, and it's true. Every block has a church. Everyone tithes a significant portion of their earnings to the churches around here. Everyone is religious. Everyone is polite. I'm just so astounded that I used to be from a place like this. I forgot it existed. It's like going back to my childhood. People say, excuse me. People make eye contact. When I got to LA, I would make eye contact and smile and say hi to people that I didn't know, because that's what you do in the Midwest. Well, in LA, I soon realized those people that are making eye contact with you, they want something. They're grifters. They're up to something. They're going to tell you they ran out of gas in the parking lot, and they want you to give them $20 so they could get a tank of gas to get home, you know. But after hearing that story like 5 times, I realized, actually the second time, I realized that these people are scam artists, and they do that to everybody. It's a common thing. So when I would make eye contact in LA, people would turn the other way and run. It's like, if you want to get somebody's attention, don't make eye contact. So I guess the summary is this. In Los Angeles, I lost my innocence. I lost my faith in people. And in Oklahoma, I'm getting it back, because there's a lot of good people here. And wherever you live can be beautiful, but the people are what really matter. And I picked a place where I could go so I could have community again. I thought I had community in LA. I worked really hard to build up a bunch of friends, and they all just bailed on me. They weren't there when I needed them, and they just all moved away. So hopefully I'll be able to build a community here. And I'll talk to you next time.